All right. Hey everyone. How's everyone today? Today we're doing that copper magnolia door hanging I was telling you about last week. This is Ann from Ann-C Crafts. Glad you could join me. Go ahead and post and comment a hello and where you're from when you're watching this. I have this should take. I scheduled it for about 2.5 hours, but I doubt it's going to take that long. Only because I went ahead and I painted my wooden cutout. Only because it would save time, especially with the drawing of metallic color. This is a copper color. So this is that copper magnolia. The magnolia is the only thing that's going to be on this. Granted, this is a black and white photo of it. Magnolias are mostly white, but we are going to add a few shades and tints of other colors so that we can get some definition in there. Couple of tricks that I've learned with doing these sort of things, especially when your tracer is on a piece of paper like this and you got a dark background. I don't like using transfer graphite paper all the time, especially when my lines are not that defined. So what I did was I actually outlined the majority of the picture with a Sharpie marker so I could see the lines a lot more definitively, because I'm actually going to be tracing this differently, transferring it differently onto the door hanger a little bit differently than I normally would. Typically, you'd use the graphite paper, but because I have a darker background, I can kind of play around with this. And because I can see what's going on the back of my paper from the Sharpie, I'm going to take a piece of white chalk, and I'm going to use that as my transfer paper by just scraping over the design real quick. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to fill in every single little spot of this to get the transfer effect. It'll show up. You just want it as a guideline. The great thing about chalk is that it comes off very easily of a painting. You don't even have to use a damp paper towel or anything like that. You can just use a very dry cloth, gently brush it off. You're going to paint over most of this anyway, and it's going to disappear. So I just did the highlights of the picture with the Sharpie, and basically all I'm doing with my chalk is I'm going over those Sharpie lines. That's it. Nothing extra. So you can see how dark the Sharpie line is here, and then it's faint over here, and that's how I know that I've got it covered with chalk, that I'm good to go. So once we get this done, we're just going to transfer it right on to the door hanging itself. No special prep work needed. And so that's on there. Now, because it is a pretty big piece, I'm going to actually tuck this over to the side just a little bit, because I want to actually put a little saying here, hello or welcome, whatever, just to give it something more than just a picture. And to make sure that this thing stays where I want it to, I'm just going to use some painter's tape. Tape this thing down temporarily, and it won't leave a mark on the wood, and all will be well. And once again, I thought I had everything planned, and I didn't. So I have to go grab me a pencil. There's always something that I forget. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. So, now that I have my trusty pencil, I'm just going to go over the Sharpie lines. And I don't really have to press that hard. And I'm going to just take a quick peek underneath, make sure it's transferring, which it is. And it just has to be a basic. It doesn't have to be precise. Paintings, one of the things is very forgiving about placement of things. And as the artist, you get to play with placement and how you want it to be. This is just, once again, a general guideline, nothing fancy, but just enough that we know where the breaks are for the leaves, the stems, the buds. And actually, I'm not even following a lot of my own guidelines. It looks like I can see a slight definition, but nothing major. And you know, simpler the better. This is supposed to be fun, not stressful. So, however you want to do it that makes it less stressful, go for it. And then this will just come off. My paper is still good. I can use it for many more transfers because all I gotta do is all I have to do is just put the chalk back on it. So what we have is just a general guideline. We have just a general outline. There's a little bit of chalk residue, nothing major. It's not that big of a deal. So we're done with the chalk. So I want to get in onto this this painting. This is a really fun painting. We have a lot of just basic steps to cover with this. Let me pop in here and get things set up a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start with the Magnolia itself and the buds because that's going to take, it's done in layers. Then there's quite a few layers. We've got highlights, we've got a lot of shading, outline. We're going to actually use some of the copper as part of the outline of the Magnolia, so to tie it into the background. So I'm just going to take one of my favorite brushes. I seem to gravitate towards brushes that I always like to use all the time. It's almost like your favorite pair of shoes. You always grab your most comfortable favorite pair of shoes when you want to relax. So, because the light is hitting us kind of weird, I'm just going to hold this up, and I'm just going to base coat these petals here. So while I have you on here, what's been your favorite thing today? What's been a positive thing today for you? Go ahead and post it in the comments. Kind of tell me a little bit about yourself and what your favorite activities are and what you like to do for hobbies. Everybody always has a favorite hobby. Now, if you notice, I'm doing even though the whole thing is going to be white, I'm doing each petal individually. I want to get a little bit of definition in there for each one, so when it dries, it's going to have their own definitions. Also helps with shading and highlighting, because then I know what the shape of the petal looks like, so the highlights and the shadows can work better. They're more consistent with that petal, so it looks more natural. And I'm just putting a thin coat. Now I'm not worried about what's in the center here right now, because that's where the calyx is going to be, and that is an entirely different color and process, and that's always done last anyway on really any flower that you work that have calyxes. You always do those last, because that's like the creme de resistance, the final touch of any stamen flower. So I wanted to, while I got you guys here, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about different things that's going on this week and next week. This week is, of course, St. Patty's Day on Wednesday. And honestly, I can tell you right now, I am hibernating. I am so tired. I'm ready to just relax and not do very much, quite honestly. I do have another live painting going on Friday. It's a Harry Potter board that kind of has a little bit of different things with Harry Potter. The golden snitch, it will be in the door hanging, and I haven't quite decided yet how to do the background, if I want to actually use Harry's cape, or robe I should say. I'm not really a lot on Harry Potter. My kids were tremendously, including the books. My son was a big fan of the books when he was younger. So that's Friday afternoon. I believe it's like around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's going on. And then next Tuesday, the 23rd, yes, I had to stop and think. Tuesday the 23rd, I am doing an 18-inch square painting of Rosie the Riveter for Women's History Month. Not sure what that was. To celebrate Women's History Month. And I actually, when I decided to do that, I actually thought about doing a series, either a series or several different women of history, especially from the past year and a half. We've had quite an impact of amazing women that have made history, as well as that have been honored for history. So go ahead, and if you want to see a particular person from history as a painting that can be offered next year during the month of March for Women's History Month, go ahead and post it in the comments below, and I will work on those throughout the year to get those ready for March of next year, so they can be ready to go. I do know that Rosie the Riveter, she's like a national icon. I mean, you really can't not have Rosie. But it's going to be a very generic face. Actually, it's going to be faceless because it can be customized to any nationality. That's one that they've actually internationalized to where women of any color can be portrayed with that icon face, which is nice. There are a couple of others, international women's paintings or designs that I've thought about doing. I just haven't decided what I want to do yet. I don't want to get too much because I don't want to overwhelm everybody with everything. So while that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start on the base coat for the leaves. Now the leaves, I'm gonna use a sap green, and I'm going to tuck it in here over by the white because I have a feeling I may need to lighten it up just a tad bit. This is a little darker than what I normally use with my phthalo green. Well, this isn't too bad. So I'm just going to base coat, just put in a general coat for the leaves, just to get them started. So let me know what your ideas are. I do believe I have a couple of slots open if anybody would like to paint with me on the Rosie date. I know it is a little last minute, short notice, that sort of thing. But I do have a couple of slots open if anyone's interested in joining me to paint their own. With that, you'll get I would have to know by Friday at the latest of this week, so I could get things sent out to you, the colors, the canvas, the paintbrushes, all of that, so that you would have it in time. If you don't, no big deal. I'm still going to be posting it. I'm still going to be doing it live on Facebook. So no worries there. You can always do it at a later time and get your own supplies. Or wait till next year to do it. Either way. Oh, man. So I'm going to drop down to a smaller brush. There we go. That big one's a little too big for these leaves. All right. Let's see, what else is going on? Oh, Mother's Day, April 30th, I'm doing a painter's choice. 2 different door hangings. They're both listed on the Facebook page of a circular door hanging of lemons, like a lemon wreath, or a wooden jar cut out that's got a bouquet of flowers in it that you have them. You can pick the color. You're gonna paint the style of flowers you want in there. Mostly it looks like they're posies, but they can definitely be modified to a lot of different fun ones. But it'll be a fun project. It's a really quick one. That one is a little bit more because it is an 18-inch wood cutout. Both of them are. So each one of those is $45 for the kit. If you want to just do the project and do it on your own, put it on canvas, whatever, then it would just be 15. And just let me know in the comments if that's what you want to do, because I haven't posted that one so people could pay for that. So there's lots of things going on. This spring, I started this paint party business, and so I'm kind of a little bit behind on getting ahead of the game a little bit on the different seasons and stuff. But I'm getting there. Once May hits, then the summer stuff will be coming out. I'm going to have surfboards, 2 different sizes of surfboards that can be customized. Flamingos, grill cutouts for door hangers for Father's Day. Lots of different projects, ideas, graduation stuff is going to be available. One of the biggest things that's actually popular are llamas, ironically. I'm not sure how that goes. It's going to go over in Philadelphia, but it's going to just we'll see how it goes. So I got the base coat of my leaves, and yeah, it's pretty basic. So I'm going to go back to my magnolias real quick, and we're gonna I gotta get back to my picture, my color picture. All right, so let's get started on these magnolias. Now, I'm just going to take one petal at a time because there's kind of a lot going on. I'm going to use a little bit of blue. There's actually a blue and yellow tint to magnolias. And I'm just going to use a little bit of blue for my shading. That's like my mid-tone shading for these magnolias. And then for the darker part, we'll use the copper. So we're going to start on we're going to start with this one right here. And we're going to use quite a bit of white, because we can use it for the other petals. And I'm just going to use a dab of blue. Tiny, tiny bit. In fact, that's still too bright. So I'm going to use more white. You want a blue, but you don't want it so bright blue that it distracts from the flower. So this is about right. And we're just going to, I'm going to drag some of this off. I don't need a lot for this petal. And I'm just going to do some slight contouring of these petals. Give it some definition lines. As it meets into the calyx, the center of the flower there. I don't want too much because I don't want it to detract from the actual petal. So I'm going to move over to this next one. This one has a little bit more based on the shading and the light. So I'm going to kind of tuck it in a little bit more. And I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to work on each petal individually. This isn't something that, this part isn't something you can really rush, because there are so many layers and you want it to look, I don't know, with a flower like this, you kind of want it to look a little bit more realistic than just putting paint on there. I know abstracts are kind of like the thing nowadays, but I'm not really into the abstracts. And if you do this and you want to do a little abstract with it, by all means, that would be your painting. I just have a different style. Now this one has a little deeper shading to it. And because I added a little bit darker blue, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush to get the rest of that out of there, because I don't want it to interfere with my lighter blue that I'm going to put in here. I don't want it to give it too much, interfere too much with that. So it looks like this petal is tucked away here. It's going to need a little bit more definition. And so is this next one. Ironically, it's on the outside edge more so than the inside, because the inside has more of the copper. All right. We're going to go up to the buds here, and it's real light. There's not a lot. All right. I'm going to add a little bit of pale yellow to this, only because just to give it if I can get the thing open. If I can get this thing, just a touch. It's not going to need a lot. Just enough to give it a little bit of contrast, but I don't want to overwhelm it at the same time. The calyx is actually going to be mostly copper, so copper and white. I'm just highlighting the curve of the petals there, just to give it a little bit more definition. So I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to go back to my leaves and fill them in a little bit more, put another coat of green, and start gradually adding in some highlights. when I do my blending, I always like to do it on a wet surface. So when my paint is damp for this leaf, and we're just going to do the same thing as we did before. We're just going to do one petal at it, one leaf at a time. And I'm going to drag the excess off, and I'm actually going to brush the excess off, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the yellow. And I'm just going to skim it. Skim it through the petal, just a tad. I just want to give it some definition. So it actually looks like something. I'm actually going to keep my brush damp, and I'm going to blend it in more. It looks a little jagged. It looked a little rough, so I'm just going to blend it. The more you blend something when it's wet, if you over blend it, it will actually disappear. Granted, depending on what you highlight it with will depend on whether it's going to completely disappear or just lighten up. So, I'm going to go on to the next leaf here. And because I'm a lefty, I kind of have to do all of these backwards. It's one thing about being left-handed that really gets frustrating is that I have to do things backwards if I don't want to smear anything. All right. Now, instead of changing brushes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I took way too much water off on it, I'm just going to tap into that yellow with my number 2 flat brush. And I'm just going to highlight. And then I'll go back in, clean off my brush, tap a little bit of the water off, and then I'll go in and I'll blend. Okay. Back to the green. And I totally need to start over on that one because I did an oopsie. All right, dryer brush. Now we're going to go in and we're going to come in and just fill in. Got a curly Q there. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and let me know who you are, where you're from. We've been talking about different upcoming live painting events. including a couple of virtual events that you can join in with your own painting. If you want to purchase the kits from me, that's fine. If you want to do the painting on your own with your own supplies and your own paint surface, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But I won't be furnishing anything. It will all just be, you'll be doing the drawing of the paintings and the supplies and all of that. So when you do you'll just be following along in the tutorial that I'll be having. So no pressure to actually purchase the kit and instructions from me, or the kit and the tracer from me. You can do it on your own surfaces and do your own thing with it, and go from there. They're posted below in my other in the Facebook page. Friday we're doing a Harry Potter wooden door hanging type thing, something simple. Even a teenager, if you have a teen that's bored and wants to do something and is a Harry Potter fan, they can definitely join in. I believe it's at like 2 or 3 o'clock Eastern time. So I don't know what their school schedule would be virtually, but they can join in. It will be posted. It will be saved, so they can watch it afterwards. That's not a problem. So Harry Potter on Friday, Rosie the Riveter next Tuesday, March 16th. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for my second one. I try to do about 2 live paintings a week. It keeps me in practice, but it also gives you guys an idea to see what I'm doing and what's available to you guys. If you ever decide that you want to do a virtual paint party, in-person paint party once restrictions start coming off. I know in Pennsylvania here, the state is lifting some of its restrictions, but Philadelphia has its own guidelines that it's following and going by. So it's all over the place for restrictions on in-person stuff and for capacity. Had a brain lapse there for a moment. So capacity and what exactly is going to be open is Philadelphia is on their own time schedule. So the rest of the states going to start lifting things April 4th, but who knows exactly what those lifts are going to be. And I'm sure that, people back home, the governor there, who knows what she's going to do with lifting. But the cool thing is that you can do the in-person party at your place, and I can still be online with you. And you would just set up like your big screen TV, if you can hook it up to your internet, and put the Facebook Live on a big screen. Which, there's always options out there. That's for sure. I kind of got that one a little too bright. That's okay. So those are options. There's lots of summer stuff coming up. Mother's Day, I have April 30th is a painter's choice of 2 different door hangers to do for mom, or you could do with mom. That can be an option. If you have something in mind that you would like to do, like as a mother-daughter painting, get a hold of me and I will look through my numerous paint files and I'm sure we can come up with something for you. Lots of options. There's never not enough options. There's always something out there for everybody. Not sure about dads, but we do have things that art kits that can be sent out for kids to do for dads for Father's Day that are real simple. They're on canvas boards. They get the pre-traced design. With the instructions, and then they get a link to the tutorial. That way they don't have to sit through it. If they don't want to, it's just part of the package. They can just do their own thing if that's what they want to do. And I think a lot of kids are finally tired of the internet. With the virtual school and everything, that computers are now not as fun as they used to be, sort of thing. And that's perfectly okay if kids want to do their own thing. I think that's great when they do that, because they're going to use their own paints. The only thing they're going to get from me is the pre-traced canvas for a set of instructions and the video tutorial that comes with it if they want to use that. So they're not required to, no paints will be sent out, and they can do their own thing if they want. This is part of doing these also isn't just following the directions of someone else, but it's having your imagination open up and fly. I don't think we use our imaginations nearly as enough as we should. I think if we did, we'd be pleasantly surprised with the outcome. So I'm almost done. I'm almost just kind of going in a circle here with these petals. I will do a little bit of shading and highlighting on the background just to give it a little bit more depth and interest. But I don't want to, and I'm not sure if I want to use black with the copper or if I want to actually use a dark brown. So if you're online, go ahead and put something in the comments as to what you think should be in there, if it should be brown or black with the copper as the shading for this. I'm going to add some highlights with the white and copper so that it's got both. So it's going to have more of a metallic feel to the background. But it's always nice to have an input of other people as to what you'd like to see. And so I also know that you're out there. So go ahead and drop in a comment on what color you think it should be, the darker shading. And when I'm done with this, we'll see what we got. I'm going to go ahead and risk doing both of these leaf petals at the same time. It should be okay. Just smoothing that out. All right. So we've got all of the leaves in there now. The center's dry, so now I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to do the calyx. And I'm actually going to just start with the copper, and then I'm going to go and put in the white highlights. I'm going to actually do that a little opposite of what I would normally do. Just so we get a little bit of just a little bit of difference. I'm going to use, there it is. I'm going to use a liner for this, only because it's such a small area that I really don't want to have too big of a mess with everything. I don't want it to be too big, but I don't want it to be too small. So I'm just going to come in here . What am I looking for here? There we go. All right. So I'm just going to put on a couple of light layers for this copper. And then while that's drying, I'm going to go around my petals and I'm going to slowly, just lightly put in my copper, just some copper. Around the petals. And some of the copper is going to be actually on the inside of the petals, not necessarily on the outside. And I'm going to go to the left. My leaves are still a little bit damp on the right hand side there, so to avoid that mess that I don't want to deal with, come in here and instead of going right to the edge of the flower petal, I'm actually going to go to the inside, and that's just to define that petal. The petal's already being defined really by the copper background, so I don't want to interfere with that, because then that's going to detract away from the actual petals. So I'm going to go on the inside and give it the definition. And I'm just going to go on the outside of the yellow and the blue as much as possible, because I want that to actually define it as well. Because it looks like then the petals are curled up and not just flat. So, want some definition here. With this, gives us some character and definitely makes it more realistic. Just going to touch in some shading towards the center where the calyx, the petals meet the calyx, because you're not going to get much definition otherwise. And we definitely want definition that these petals are forming in, curling into the center, so that we can see a shape. We want to be able to see a shape. That's part of the beauty of flowers, is that they all have different shapes and forms and colors and shades, that there's many layers, and we don't want to miss on those. We don't want to miss out on those layers. Those layers are what makes and defines flowers and gives them their uniqueness. And I know it looks like it's a copper mess on this in the center, and that's okay, because we're going to go in and we're going to actually highlight with white shortly. So I want to get the copper in here. While that center is drawing, because that's important. All right. All right. So the calyx it's fluffy. It looks like a cone, and it's about yay high, and it's got little dots all over it. So with the white and with this kind of wet, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just get this a little damp with paint. We're going to do the wet on wet paint again, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to take a little bit of the white. I don't want too much on the tip of my brush, because I don't want globs. I want dots. And the dots will blend in with that copper and also give it dimension in different shadings of white. So it'll end up with a little bit of metallic white that's faded, and then I'll just come in and brighten it up a little bit. Now we don't want too much, because we want to be able to actually see the shape, and the fact that there is a centerpiece there. So basically something like that. Something very simple, makes it easy. It's not there's not a lot of major thought to it, but there is you want to have a little bit of forethought to it, because you want to make sure your placement is correct. Now, I'm going to put down some burnt umber, and I'm going to actually mix it with a little bit of the copper off to the side to see what I get for shading. I really don't want to use black on this because it is so harsh that I want it to be softer than what it typically would be in a shaded area. But I want that shimmer. I don't want it to be dull like the painting. So it's got a little bit of shimmer to it. And I'm just going to go around and basically around this entire thing, around the entire flower itself is dark. It's got shading to it. So I'm just going to do a rough outline, and clean up these leaves at the same time. That's one great thing about doing the shading at the end, is that you can kind of clean up everything. And I'm not going too far past because I want to keep the shape and the shade, because I'm also going to do highlights in here too, so I don't want to totally obscure it with shadows. I want it to have both light and dark definitions. Now I am using a liner brush for this, only because when I come in through here, I'm going to need that precision, and I don't want to mess up my leaves. I worked really hard on those leaves. I don't want to mess up because I don't want to lose that definition of those or my petals. So I'm going to take my time on this. And get in there. Typically this isn't something that you can really do beforehand, because you don't know where the flower is going to be, and who really wants to put the shading in beforehand when you don't really know what you're going to do with the flower beforehand. So it takes some forethought as to how it's going to get executed, because it's definitely done a little bit differently than how you would typically do something like this. Now I'm going to leave I don't want to totally cover all of this in shadow, but I do want some sort of a definition. And you're not going to get much on this right hand side, because that's more actually where there's light. There is some here. Now, and part of the shadow is whatever you want to make it. There's no hard and fast rule to it. You know, usually you want to have a point of where your light source is, and your shadow is going to obviously be on the opposite side on all parts. Because this is laying down, this is almost, you can almost make this into like an abstract with this. Granted, it's a little bit of a controlled abstract, but an abstract nonetheless. It just depends on how you want to present this. I like the copper look, so I want to actually keep more of the copper showing than having it shaded. And then when I do put in the highlights, I'm actually going to mix white with the copper, so it's going to get both values in the metallic, only because you want to stay consistent. And I almost didn't have enough. Got lucky. All right. All right, now that this part's done, I can do one of two things. I can lighten up, I can dampen my brush, and see how that works on adding a little bit of copper metallic to the edge and just blending it in. You know, it's kind of rough it up a little bit. Don't let it be as smooth as what, or you can smooth it out with the copper. It's totally your design. While I am doing this, though, I will do the white, the copper, light copper highlights, and that will help with the, what am I thinking here? With blending. So I'm just gonna scoop up some white, about as much as what I had with the brown. And I'm just going to take a tip now. I don't want to so stark white that, you know, that's way too white, so I definitely want to use more copper. But I want it light enough that I'm going to have highlights, but at the same time I don't want it to be too white. Trying to find that happy medium can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. And that's way too light. So I'm going to put that back in the water. I'm going to add copper. Looks like we're going to have a lot of copper. But that's okay. That was my goof up. I should have done more copper and less white, because I just want a hint of a lightness in what I want to do. I'm just going to put a few because then I'm going to go back in with more copper and blend it out. This is what happens when you do something live and you don't know how it's going to turn out, but you're willing to do it anyway. But that's okay. I'm willing to learn with everybody else what works, what doesn't, and you'll see how this works too. So now that I've got what I'm doing is I'm putting the highlights behind the shadow because metallic, there's so many different shades of metallic. You can hold it one way and get one look and move it another way and get a completely different look. And you can paint with your metallics going one direction, and then when you shift and change you just move the piece. You get a whole different look. So this is a little bit better. There we go. So just something subtle in the highlights. To give it some definition. That there's more than one layer. That there's multitude, and it's shifting, and that's what, I don't know, metallics are fun because you never know what's gonna come out of it. It's always a surprise, and it doesn't matter if it's gold, copper, bronze, silver, even the metallic colors like green and red. You can get different impressions from those colors as well because of what's in them to give them their luster. I guess that's a lot of the reason probably why a lot of people like to work with metallics, because you never know what you're going to end up with. And then there are some people that are very frustrated with metallics because you don't know what kind of end result you're going to get, and they want to have a little bit of a guarantee that it's going to be something nice or something that they were expecting. And when it's not, it can be frustrating. Okay. I'm actually kind of like, what I want from this. It's a surprise for everybody. So, let me fix that. And let me fix this a little bit. Now, if you noticed, none of my chalk, or very little of my chalk, is showing. There's some over here, but once I do that, it comes off. It comes off very easily. Oh, that actually looks pretty good. All right, so I think we're about good here. Just a little touch up on my leaf here. All right, so the only thing I have left to do is if I want to put hello up here, or if I want to put it down here. And if I don't like it, I can just do this. I can wipe it away. So, how about this? You tell me what you would like to see on the side, and I will add it afterwards. So this is what it looks like. Finished. You really can't see the highlights unless it's actually in it's away from the bright lights. But this is a door hanging, and what I'm going to do with this is once it's dry, finished drying, I'm going to add some jute twine to it for just a short little hanger to hang on the front door. Or you don't even have to hang it on the front door, you can keep it inside the house. So I'm just going to play with this again. Hello. And yes, I apologize. It is backwards because I am a lefty. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And then once the rest of this is dry, I will go ahead and I will put that in the dark brown to tie in with everything else, because I don't want to add. I managed to do this without black. I like to keep it that way. So let me know what you think. And yeah, this video was a little bit longer, but I know that it did not take 2.5 hours to do. So I'm glad of that. If you would like to do this on a canvas, let me know, and I can get you set up with a canvas kit for an art kit with this. Or if you want it on an actual wood hanger like this, let me know, and I can get you set up with that as well. If you do the door hanger, it's $45, but it comes with the wood piece, it comes with the jute, it comes with all the paints, the tracer, the instructions, everything. The canvas is $35 with everything. If you want to just do this on your own with your own colors, you just want the tracer and the instructions and the picture as a basic with the printed canvas, and I will actually put it on the canvas for you. I won't leave you hanging. Then that's $15, and that's on a 16 by 20 canvas. So let me know. Shoot me a comment down below, or private message me. Either way, let me know, and I can get you set up. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.